Hi, welcome to this third in our series of videocasts on the theme of connected leadership, in which we explore a range of distinctions, thoughts, and in some cases myths around the theme of leader and leadership. I'm Peter Stone, Managing Partner here in the Consulting Division at Davies, and I'm joined by my friend, colleague, and mentor of 30 years now, Chris Cooke, and to explore some of the themes today. Chris, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm really good. Looking forward to this.
Good one. Thank you. Well, I think today you've posted the idea of leadership, listening is work, hit or myth.
Yeah.
Can you explain a bit more?
Listening is work. It's fun. So I came across this when I was doing some research. I just came across the soundbite, doing some research into listening as a leadership skill. And this is unattributed because I can't find the source of the quote anymore, but the line stuck with me. Listening is work. It is the most powerful work you can do. I thought, interesting that, because listening doesn't look like work, does it? In fact, it looks like the opposite of work. I mean, my wife will say to me, well, you don't do anything. Well, I say, oh, I'm listening. So a coach would say, yeah, listening is the work I do. But in a leadership context, we don't see our leaders very often, normally. When we do see them, they're telling us things. So we've got town halls, presentations, board meetings. They're launching initiatives or announcing key decisions. So, show and tell. Leadership. So I think we're going to agree on this actually, but I think listening actually is the work of leadership. It might be the work we don't see, and it might be the most powerful work. Do you agree, Pete?
I absolutely do agree that listening is an incredibly powerful element of the role, and it's probably the most silent. It's probably the most invisible, that even when you're doing it, people don't recognize that what you're really doing is listening.
That's interesting. All right, so we agree. So I think we can see, we often say listening is work, most powerful work. Do you think that's a hit or a myth? I think we might be agreeing already it's a hit, but
absolutely,
we might be agreeing for different reasons. We're going to set up a little game with you here, Pete. Look. A couple of things here. Here's a whiteboard. Enjoy.
Thank you.
I'll tell you what to do with the whiteboard in a moment. And here is the trophy that we're competing for. I know already. I know how much you want this. So what I want you to do is to write down, when you said listening's important and it's leadership work, why you're a leader, why do you listen? What do you listen for? What's important to you? I'm going to write down what's important to me. The thing is, we're not going to show each other what we've written down. The prize goes to which of us can correctly guess what the other person's written. So you write down 3 keywords or phrases. I write down 3 keywords. You don't reveal it to me. If I guess all of your 3, I win 3 points, and I probably win the cup. So okay. You ready to play the game?
Yeah, clear.
Right, we need to write quite quickly because this could get boring. What's important to me? Okay, I've got mine because I know what's important to me. Right, Pete, you ready?
Got them, yeah.
You're right, don't show me. Right, how are we going to do this? You go first. You try and guess what's important to me. What am I listening for?
Okay, I think you would be listening for commitment and motivation. So why are people doing what they're doing? Why are they behaving the way they're behaving? So what's that commitment in the background? I think you would be listening for need or implied request for people, where they perhaps need some support, some help. And I think you would be listening for connectedness or opportunity to connect people around the team, the organization, the division. So connectedness.
You got one of the things. You got 1 point. You got 1 point. You got one of the things I wrote down, and I'll show you what I wrote down in a minute. It's interesting because you're actually right. Now I think about it, I listen for people's axis of strength. So I do listen for some of it. But this is what I wrote down, if you can see this. So relatedness and connection and trust and rapport And the best way to build rapport is to let the other person speak. And I think when you got the relationship, then you're in a position, then that's the foundation for everything. I also wrote down coaching because I do coaching, but I strongly believe, I might mention this before, that managers need, and in a distributed leadership model in particular, leaders need to be more coach-like. Managers. So listening as a coaching skill, absolutely foundational. And then emotional listening, not listening to the words, but listening for the emotions, particularly from a well-being point of view. If you care about people, and burnout and brownout are major leadership concerns as well, and you need to check in with people and listen, how are you, but listen authentically, even to what's going on with you today. So that's where I'm coming from.
Okay.
So you get
understood.
You get
Thank
1
you.
point. Now,
So you have a guess on me?
I've only got to beat 1 out of 3 now. It's interesting because one of the things you thought I listened for, I thought you went for. So I think you listen for commitment, and you listen to see what motivates other people. I also think you listen for possibility and new insights. And I know that there are some people you go to for inspiration. So those are the 3 things I thought you might have picked up.
Okay, close. I'm going to give you 1.5. So
right.
I think I'm conceding victory there.
Yeah.
So I went for 3, which are context, commitment, which you got. And the third one was I'm listening for opportunity through to action. So possibility is part of that conversation. So possibility can either precede opportunity, or it can be between opportunity and action. And I use the word conversation. And I've got this underlying belief when it comes to leadership, that leadership is about conversations. It's not about Gantt charts, and it's not about strategy models, which more the kind of technical elements. We do need Gantt charts, we do need strategy models, but leadership as a mindset and behavior is about conversations. And so what is a conversation? A conversation for me is a set of actions and decisions with commitment and motivation. So what's sitting in the background that's driving people's actions and decisions? So what's the commitment and the motivation that's creating behavior? And is that behavior being directed to action and decision? And certainly it's my view that if you're listening for those and you're making actions and you're making decisions happen, that's how you start to get progress. It's how you start to unlock performance. And maybe we'll talk a bit later about the alternative to actions and decisions.
I talk about finding axis of strength. I'm hearing you talk about working with the grain, with people to draw out their potential and build them to leadership. So you'll listen, mostly it's about interaction and conversation. You'll see my list. It really all comes from a space which is the work of leadership is to develop other leaders.
Yeah.
Which is, and hence all the coach-like stuff I talk about.
Now, the one that you missed, Chris, was context.
Yes.
So when I talk about leadership is conversation, not Gantt chart. Yeah. So conversation, action, decision, commitment, and motivation. That needs to operate within a context. So if we're talking about distributed leadership, I want to hear that everybody has common context. So everybody understands the context, and that understanding is common across the network of people. So from which we get alignment and we get the grain. If the context is misunderstood, not understood, or misaligned, then we get a different set of issues.
So you'll be listening almost to what people don't say, or saying things which kind of show to you that they have an interpreter. What people hear is not always what you say. And so they might have an interpretation which you don't, it's not quite what you were saying. So you have an opportunity to correct that or to reinforce it.
That's absolutely right. And certainly when I talk about communication isn't what you say and isn't what you tell. And I think, as you said earlier, leadership typically tells and cascades. Kind of communication is about what is actually heard, not what's told, but what's heard. And to know what's heard, you've got to listen.
You don't know what's heard until you listen. Nice point. Well, I think we can do another round pick. I think we do. So you have a chance to move the cup in the in the other direction. We might just need to pause the recording whilst we clear our boards. But let me set up the game whilst we're furiously scribbling. This time, I know you're a great listener, but I know, like every leader, there are things that stop you listening. There are definitely things that stop me listening. So I'm going to write down the 3 things that stop me listening. You write down the 3 things that stop you listening, and we'll just see if you can get the prize back, shall we? Right, I'm going to write down my 3. Here we go. Okay, I've got one of them. That definitely stops me. Shall I go first this time and try and guess yours, Pete, based on what you said before?
Go for it.
What do I think? What do I think you've come up with? I think you're turned off by people speaking at effect. I think victims speak. People say, oh, "No, it's not under my control. I can't do it." I think that kills you. I think when people come to you, we talk about interpretations, but when they come to you with conspiracy theories, organizational conspiracy theories, strange interpretations, I think you'll just go, "I'm just hearing story here. I'm just hearing story." You might ask them, "What are the facts?" And I suspect you hear inauthenticity, kills you. So, do I win any points?
You're close, but it's no cigar. I'm going to give you 0.
Okay.
So I had 3 that get in the way of me personally. The lack of trust. Now we can get into what actually creates trust. But if I, either through history or through listening to people, fail to develop trust with the way they're thinking, the way they're behaving, I'm just going to stop listening and I'm going to move on. So that's kind of a negative behavior. And trust can be created by lots of story and inauthenticity, lack of credibility. Right. Pressure to deliver. So we're all under pressure to deliver results, to deliver outputs, to deliver outcomes, to achieve change. And sometimes, and that links to the 3rd one, which is impatience. For me, that can get in the way. So that focus on delivery, focus on result can lead to an inability or a lack of willingness just to pause and invest in listening.
Okay.
So
now I'm hearing some things there, Pete. I'm going to give you a bit of coaching in a minute on those things because okay, I got 0 points. You might win the cutback then. What do you think turns me off?
I'm also going to put lack of trust, or trust stroke credibility. Okay. So if an individual hasn't developed credibility with you, then you probably won't listen to them. I'm also going to put in impatience or dismissive. You're not getting it. I'm going to move on. I'm going to listen to somebody else who does get it. Mm-hmm. And a 3rd one I am going to put in, you might have a predetermined solution or predetermined idea as to what the solution or the right answer might be. And therefore there's a kind of rush to get somebody to that point. Okay. I think we can put the cup in the middle because you get 1 point for that. So it's a draw. Because I got 1 point. I don't know. Let's call it a draw for now. So this is what I wrote. And the first one's right. I love solving problems myself. Yeah. So trying to solve the problem for somebody, and as a coach, that is one of the biggest barriers. Assumptions, we just assumptions you make about people. I've heard, it's sort of, particularly if I know somebody, well, I've heard it before, or I'm just not looking forward to this. So almost my mindset is, can I get through this conversation, not what can I get out of it? So I have to be very mindful with my what's sometimes called an already listening, where you have assumptions about what's going to happen in the interaction. And then finally is like your impatience, just rambling. I don't know if you've ever been in those things. You ask somebody an open question and 20 minutes later they're still talking, at which point I kind of, and your point is. So that's that. So, but Pete, let's just put these down for a moment. So I wanted to just to get back to you on your list. No, you can keep this. You talked about, I don't have time for this, or I don't necessarily trust that. Maybe you don't trust somebody to come up with the right answer. I think when I hear this, I don't have time for, and maybe my solution might be better than theirs, and I don't trust them. From a leadership perspective, as coaching leaders, I often see people, particularly when they say, I don't have time. Why don't you have time? Because you're so busy being in control of everything yourself.
So although you might want to be a distributed leader, you might actually be holding on rather than letting go. And I think it's really hard for people to genuinely empower, genuinely trust, generally let go, which only by letting go does it free them up. And sometimes there's this racket that, I have to be involved in everything. If the wheels won't turn without me, which is not a hit, that is often a myth. So I wanted to give you that reflection. I
Yeah.
don't know what do you take away from that?
I can relate to it to some degree. I think there's also an element of leadership through Microsoft Office, which is that I don't need to listen because I've got a very technical skill of analyzing the spreadsheet, so I can understand from a numerical perspective some of the commercial issues that we might be facing, and I can solve whatever issues we've got through Excel,
Yeah,
or by having people create the Excel or manipulating the numbers. So kind of leadership by spreadsheet. I think there's also leadership by PowerPoint. If I can create the right deck and
yeah,
create and tell the right story, then I can present that and I can achieve whatever I want to achieve through that. So I think I can achieve as a leader through Microsoft Office, which isn't leadership. So leadership for
yeah,
me is get out of the office, the kind of the physical office, but also
yeah.
get out of Microsoft Office. And that's where kind of come back to the leadership type story.
Get out of your own head. And this is very true of the kind of expert leaders. We work a lot with experts as leaders, and developing experts are very used to working technically, working in their cave. And when working with those individuals and say listening actually doesn't come naturally.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking about here this powerful listening for what people don't say, trying to read emotions. That is a learnt skill, and it requires training and it requires discipline and support. So, and we see this a lot. We do a lot of coaching ourselves with our clients. When we teach, coaching for managers to become more coach-like as part of an enterprise-wide transformation and building those coaching skills, we spend most of the time just building the listening skills. Uh, and it can be learnt, but it's not a 1 hour seminar. You have to have regular drips of information. You have to have experience and feedback. And when you learn this stuff, it is the most powerful work. Pete, I'd just like you to wrap up. I think a short story of where you've seen it's the most powerful work that you can do.
Yeah, I would cite quite a significant business restructure for one of the business units that I look after. So 50 people, full P&L responsibility, and beautifully designed on PowerPoint, and 50 people spread out in small units with multiple reporting lines, and the senior leadership team, each owning parts of the organization. We had a strategy, and that had been communicated. Historically, it had been told, as it were. And the spreadsheet looked okay. The numbers were looking okay. Um, but getting out of my office, the sort of metaphorical and the physical office, and spending time with teams, with people, being on the pitch, with the team, listening to the work and watching the work, being part of the work, listening, as we've described it, what that told me was people don't really understand the context. There's misalignment, there's misunderstanding. So people are kind of going this way and that way. There was good intent. So people had, in many cases, good intent. Their commitment was the right type of commitment. But in some cases, I'm hearing lots of story. I was hearing lots of explanation. The reason we can't do this, the reason we can't do that, well, it's the client that's being slow, or those folks over there are not collaborating as effective as they should. So I was hearing story and explanation as to why things weren't happening. And I was seeing confusion. I'm seeing ambiguity. I'm seeing repeat work. In some cases, I'm seeing competition because people wanted to outperform each other. And in some cases, downright conflict, personality, dislike, and people trying to outperform each other to the point where relationships were quite significantly broken. So on the face of it, it looks like a neat, tidy organization that's performing. When you get on the pitch or on the stage and start listening to what's really going on, then I'm seeing disharmony, disunity, or I'm hearing competition, conflict, ambiguity, misalignment of intent and commitment. So what we did, or what I did, just through some intelligent inquiry, just go and get curious with people. Start asking open questions about our operating model. What's getting in the way? Where should we invest? Where would you invest? How would you like to make a difference? What would you do? How might that work? Who would you like to work with? And opening up that world of possibility for people and just engaging and not projecting answers, not telling them what the answer is, because I genuinely didn't really know. And what came back were 2 or 3 big ideas, actually, which forced quite a significant restructure. So a fundamental realignment of the partner team, and a consolidation of all individuals under one person. And then what that did was started to create a true sense of collaboration and networking amongst that one team. The individuals at the partner layer could have clarity of focus on a specific set of outcomes, redefining the roles, which gave great context for everybody to understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. So, what we have now is an organization that's performance, but it's actually also in harmony as well. So what I hear now is harmony.
Yeah. So it's interesting, without the listening, you wouldn't have broken out of the reality distortion field that a lot of leaders are in. So without this, and without those insights, you wouldn't have been able to start to move to distributed leadership because you're not listening.
Exactly right.
So listening is work. It's the most powerful work you can do. We think it's a hit for a variety of reasons, as you've heard if you've been listening. So thank you very much for your listening. And I think we'll leave it there for today. Look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you.